Okay, let's dive into this. Today we're stepping totally out of the realm of those slick Hollywood police dramas, and we're jumping straight into a high-stakes, incredibly complex reality. What we're actually looking at here is a real-life true crime explainer, and it's based entirely on newly released explosive sworn testimony from a 2026 judicial inquiry. We're going to explore what literally happens on the ground when elite law enforcement tries to intercept massive quantities of narcotics hidden inside global shipping containers. But more importantly, we're looking at what happens when an officer is just a little too good at their job. To guide us through all this, we've got the protagonist of our story, Hawk's warrant officer Karl Sanders. He's a highly effective narcotics investigator. And just look at his words here. They perfectly capture the extreme, fast-paced urgency of stopping moving narcotics. I mean, think about it. When you've got millions of rands worth of illicit drugs sitting behind a simple padlock in a sprawling commercial port, time is absolutely of the essence. Quick action isn't just nice to have, it's a strict requirement.
But, Sanders doesn't work alone. Long before a shipping container is ever physically opened, there's this massive intelligence operation happening in the background. Sanders relies on what he evocatively calls ghosts. These are covert intelligence operatives, and they have to remain strictly unidentified. They might just hover on the edges of a crime scene, observing, but they never actively process evidence so they don't blow their cover in court. Sanders describes this relationship as brilliant and deeply symbiotic. Basically, if a ghost he trusts gives him verified coordinates, he accepts it as absolute fact and moves to operationalize it right then and there.
So, how does all this secret intel actually translate into police action? You might be wondering, well, if they know the drugs are in the box, why not just track and catch the ultimate kingpin? And the police do try this undercover approach. It's authorized under Section 252A of the Criminal Procedure Act, and we call it a controlled delivery. It sounds exactly like a movie. Officers board a vessel out at sea, they swab the cargo to confirm the drugs, replace those drugs with something identical, like baby powder, and then they plant high-tech tracking transponders inside the container. Okay, so considering all that incredible effort, the boats, the fake drugs, the high-tech trackers, what do you think Warrant Officer Sanders' personal success rate is with these controlled deliveries across major ports? 0. Yeah, that's right, 0. The Hollywood illusion completely shatters right here. Because the gritty reality is that commercial ports are highly secure, tightly fenced environments. By the time police get permission from the captain, the harbor traffic control, the ship's engineer, and get an escort below deck just to plant a bug, they're basically arriving with a marching band. The syndicates control the access points, they're instantly tipped off, and they simply abandon the container. So because the undercover approach is basically a bust, officers like Sanders have to rely on their raw operational efficacy. When Sanders gets 100% positive intel that a massive drug haul is at immediate risk of disappearing, he goes for an emergency approach. He doesn't sit around waiting days for a yard manager's permission to book a business inspection. No way. He uses the law to bypass all that sluggish bureaucracy, forces entry, and works directly with teams like the local Criminal Records Center to secure these undeniable, massive seizures right there on the depot floor. And to really understand his elite capability, you just have to look at his track record. Back in June 2021, over at Port Shepstone, his team intercepted a staggering 541 kilograms of cocaine. A bust of that sheer scale doesn't just make the evening news, it literally disrupts international supply chains. We are talking about costing these transnational cartels hundreds of millions of rands. Sanders was, without a doubt, a massive, undeniable threat to these syndicates. Now, here is where the story takes a very dark, systemic turn. In a functional justice system, a historic 999-kilogram drug bust cements a career. In a compromised one, it marks you for elimination. For Warrant Officer Sanders, dismantling a billion-rand syndicate was the exact moment his institutional nightmare began. What's really crucial to grasp here is just how quickly the system turned on him. Literally just 4 months after that historic 541-kilo bust, the entire stash vanished. It was stolen straight out of the custody of the Directorate for Priority Crime Investigation. Just unbelievable. Complete institutional chaos, where the investigators and the Forensic Science Lab had a massive miscommunication about storage capacity, basically created the perfect blind spot for a syndicate to strike. And then, instead of hunting down 200 million rands worth of missing cocaine, the system decides to wage a multi-year war against the honest cop who found it in the first place. Just compare these two realities for a second. On the one hand, you have a highly skilled operative intercepting transnational syndicates, navigating incredibly dangerous port logistics, and disabling massive drug networks. And on the other hand, a syndicate walks away with 200 million rands in cocaine from a police vault. So how is Sanders treated? He's stripped of his scarce skills allowance, investigated, and benched. And his official punishment? Being slapped with petty administrative charges for directing a police shooting club without proper permission? I mean, they literally use the absolute pettiest administrative rules they could find to sideline their best offender. Sanders knew exactly what was happening to him, too. Under oath, he stated, "If I was not interfering with someone's activities, they would have left me. But if I was efficient to interrupt their activities, I was targeted." This is that terrifying concept of corruption through misdirection. General Sonona actually signed a letter transferring Sanders entirely out of narcotics, dumping him into supply chain management. It was a completely calculated lateral transfer, purely designed to keep those criminal shipping lanes clear. But, just moving him wasn't enough. They had to destroy his credibility completely. Enter what we're calling the polygraph trap. So after the drugs were stolen, Sanders' unit was forced to take a polygraph. But this wasn't about finding the truth, not at all. It was brutal psychological warfare. A Captain Nell informally told Sanders right to his face that he failed, and the report officially read, "Deception indicated." Now, normally, you get fired for that, but instead, they just let this dark cloud of being labeled a corrupt cop hang over his head for years, gaslighting his unit and completely assassinating his character. Which brings this whole systemic nightmare to a really stunning climax. Picture this. It's June 2nd, 2026, day 111 of the Judicial Commission of Inquiry into Criminality. Sanders is sitting on the stand, testifying under oath, before a chairperson and an advocate. And he is publicly pulling back the curtain on this entire compromise system, explaining the absolute agony of carrying a fake polygraph result and watching syndicates operate with total impunity from the inside out.
And the thing is, he didn't just bring allegations with him. He brought undeniable documentary proof. You can see how these sworn transcripts and official letters from the commission detail exactly how he was warned and charged for the shooting club, juxtaposed right against his ignored grievance files regarding the stolen exhibits. He wasn't just a disgruntled employee complaining. He was a whistleblowing state asset proving with hard documentary evidence that he was being actively targeted by his own management. And then, this staggering moment of vindication happens right there on the record. While Sanders is testifying about the polygraph trap, the commission's evidence leader literally stops the proceedings. At exactly 9:50 a.m., an unsigned document drops into their inbox from the KZN Forensic Science Lab. And it turns out, a secret administrative review had actually been done on that polygraph test years ago. The test was technically flawed. They had even stopped the examiner from doing more tests. The polygraph was officially declared invalid. Sanders broke down in tears on the stand, finally exonerated after years of malicious systemic sabotage. Warrant Officer Karl Sanders wasn't punished because he did something wrong. He was punished because he did his job perfectly. And that leaves us with a genuinely terrifying reality to consider. Just think about this. If syndicates are so deeply embedded that they literally control access to our commercial ports, rendering undercover operations completely useless, and the very system designed to uphold the law actively benches its most effective, honest officers, who is really in charge of our borders? It's a stark reminder of the true security challenges within our global supply chains. Thank you for exploring this with us, and keep questioning the system.